Hey everybody, Isto James here. I wanted to show you guys this painting that I was working on. It's a pet portrait. Now, it's not this pet portrait. This is actually my dog. I've done a few in the past, and I wanted to do something special for a friend of ours that takes care of our dogs a lot. We have 3 dogs in my household right now, so we're busy. So when we go on vacation, things, even if we can getaways, we need somebody to help us out. So he also has a dog. His name is Tanner. I've nicknamed him Tanner the Tongue. So actually, I'm gonna show you a few different photos I have. There's a funny story about this dog. His name, Tanner the Tongue, like I've given him, is a really good name for him because he's always got his tongue hanging out of his mouth. The fun thing about this is the picture that I've decided to use as my reference, he doesn't have a tongue hanging out at all. So I'm gonna add one in there. I'm going to trace at least some of this image to just make sure I get the proportions correct. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this up on my computer screen, and when I do, I'm gonna start with just the outline. I'm not gonna trace every single aspect of this. If any of you have ever seen tattooing videos or gotten a tattoo yourself, you'll see some of those artists, when they apply that stencil to the arm, they put every last detail in there. This is not what we're going for with this effect. So here, I'll even show you guys a picture of the end product here of my tracing. The trace is relatively simple. I'm gonna capture the eyes, definitely the outline, the nose, and I'm gonna add this tongue in here just for fun. But this is just so when I come back to actually paint it, I know where I'm gonna be at. So my process is really simple. I've already done the background. I'm sorry, we're gonna skip that part for you guys. I've actually emulated it to look like his carpet that he has at home. So hopefully he hangs this up in his home in the main living room where it matches the carpet and everything. So when we do this, the first thing that I'm doing is I'm just tracing the outline. That's it. I just want to get the outside of the dog. I'm not even gonna go through the eyes and all that. I'm not gonna apply that yet. Then I'm gonna tape it to the canvas. Once I tape it to the canvas, I put a little piece of carbon paper under there so I can get the outline and the shape right. Now, when I go through that, I'm gonna actually do an underpainting, is what we call it in the art world. With this underpainting, all I'm trying to do is capture the tones and the values in the correct way. So if you look at a picture of any of these dogs, cats, animals, really any picture at all, to capture the right depth of anything that's happening within that picture, I go and I capture all the darkest colors first. I want the shadows, anything in the background, because then when I come back in with the lighter colors and the layers, we at least have the appropriate dimensions, depth, value, whatever word you want to use for it. It kind of makes it so the painting's working for you and you don't have to work so hard and trying to capture it for every little pixel or area that it is. So as you see on the painting I'm doing, yeah, there's a lot of dark browns. There's not a lot of black. I'm gonna put some black on his nose, maybe up by his ears a little bit, and the collar I'll do black, but the rest is gonna be like a dark brown. So these are the darkest points in the picture that I could see with my own eye. And then I'm just doing it relative to my terms that I can see. So the nose is black, all that. Now, once we have this main color and shadow done, our goal here was just to make sure that none of the background is showing through. It'd be really silly to have this whole thing completely done and then you actually see the carpet colors coming through where the colors are, we don't want that in this. So as I go through, now I'm gonna lay down the eyes, the nose, and stuff like that as far as the placements. If you look at the tracing that I did from the computer, you can tell it's not that complex. We are going to make it more complex, but for now, I'll reiterate, it's just to make sure that I get the eyes in the right spot and the nose in the right spot so that when you look at this later, you don't think, wow, it's such a good painting, except it looks weird and warped. Humans can detect that pretty easily. So when you look at this painting, I don't want anybody at all in the back of their minds thinking, wow, this is warped and messed up. I want them going, wow, this is actually really cool and it's pleasing to the eye. So as you can see, I put in some of the more main shapes like the eyes, the nose, where the tongue is going to be, and then I go in and do the second part of what my underpainting is going to be. So I go through and find the mid-tones. So we're not quite at details yet, but when we do the mid-tones, the dog has some pink in his nose. Definitely with the tongue, we're gonna have to lay down some red or some pink there with the tongue as well. We look at parts of the shadow, the body, and then we actually go through and we do a little bit of the white area as well. Maybe there's some yellow or some gray in there. When I lay down this white, it's gonna be darker. It's not pure white. I've mixed it with a little bit of yellow, mixed it with a little bit of gray. I've done this so that it, again, creates that depth. So when my final stage, the final steps of all of this, when I come through with the details, when I use real white, it's gonna pop. And then you're gonna see that there's different, even though it's all white hair there, you're gonna see that there's depth and dimension and texture to it. Not quite on details. When I do this, you're gonna see a lot more yellow, a little bit of orange. I mean, he's ultimately a brown dog. He is a pit bull, so he's got like this kind of reddish orange brown hue, and that changes depending on what lighting you're looking at. So when I'm laying down this second layer of underpainting, you're actually seeing these yellows come through that he might not be yellow at all, but these yellows actually exist in the painting. Same thing as in the whites areas, you know, there's yellows there, there's grays. So I'm looking for all those things. So it might start to look really detailed at this point, but we're not on the detailed part yet. All right, so as we get to this next part, there's gonna be a lot of yellows and oranges, even a little bit of whites. Now I'm putting these in to capture those middle levels. It's gonna start looking like a detailed painting, and some people might even say, oh, cool, we're done. But depending on how the light hits him, he might look yellow or a lot brighter, or might look darker, just depending on what light you're using with. So with my reference photos, you're gonna see the sun is kind of coming in over him from the top right of him, so he's going to have more bright areas in there. So I'm going to lay down a little bit more yellow, a little bit more oranges there, and as you get further down where the shadows will be, he'll have less oranges and less yellows there. It's pretty simple when you think of it that way, but then when I do come back with those final details, when I do put the yellow or the bright yellows and the whites and work on his nose, that's when this is really going to start to pop. All right, so usually I do save the eyes for last, but this one I was really excited, as you know, to get the eyes done and put them in there, make sure I was doing the right thing. This is so important because the eyes are like, I'm sure everybody's heard the quote, the eyes are the window to the soul. If you mess up the eyes on these kind of portraits, it doesn't look like the animal. And I feel if you nail the eyes, you make the eyes as detailed as possible, but make it as true to the real picture as well, that's when this dog is going to look like himself. So I actually, when I did the tracing, I did most of my focus on the eyes just to make sure I get these right tones. So when he looks at it, he's got these nice, beautiful brown yellow eyes. My dog Rufio here, he's got really dark eyes, so you can almost not see him at all in this painting that's right behind me here. But in this painting of Tanner, he's got these bright orange and yellow eyes, so I really wanted to focus on that and make sure I got them correct. I've laid down some whites and some yellows as pre-work on these eyes so that when I do the details, boom. And most people who have ever seen these paintings or watch it, like, as soon as they see the eyes get painted in there, it seems to be that's when it comes to life. So to me, it's the most crucial part. But then we talk about the next part, the nose. The cool thing about the nose, I love doing the nose myself because it's just a combination of a lot of dots. If you look at any of these high detailed photos of animals, their nose it's porous, but it's also shaped in such a way that if they're out in the sun, light's hitting it really strong at the top and then not so much on the front of it, so it's a little bit more dark in shadow. So you can really capture the shape of a nose just through a series of dots if you're using the right colors and the right values. So this is my favorite part. It might not be the most interesting for everybody else, but for me personally, my favorite part. I love doing it. I have had commissions or other pet portraits where people have told me to dial back the nose a little bit. I did too much, but hey, with this one, it's a gift. So I said, screw it, we're gonna have fun with it. And that's what I did. So as I do all these dots, you'll see that towards the top, just like I was explaining, towards the top of the nose, it's gonna be a lot lighter. So I use whites, a little bit of pinks, things like that. And I try to just capture the dimensions as best I can. So once I'm finished with it, even though it's just a collection of dots and bumps, it looks like a nose, at least a highly detailed nose in my opinion. Final touch is really just making sure his white on his chest comes out. I did the same thing as I was telling you guys. He's got darker, even though it's white, there's darker shades in there. So I laid down a kind of yellow and gray there first and then came back with and did some details over his chest. I just got to do his collar. Ever since I've known this dog, it never has changed his collar out. He's always had this camo style collar, and this is kind of almost how you know it's him. He's got his tongue sticking out and he's got his collar. Those are kind of signature pieces other than his eyes that really make this dog as characteristic as he is. So there we go. So I did a little bit of camo in there. I wanted to try to do it in a little bit of lines so you can tell it's a woven fabric, and I tried to just capture some depth. I didn't put too much detail into the collar because that's not where I felt the details were. I think the collar pops enough as it is. It doesn't have to be hyper realistic. And then I made up the chain with his name, put his little name on there, put it Tanner. And had fun with that to try to make it look like chrome, the metal pieces hanging down, things like that. you have it. That's the simple version of a painting that takes hours and hours and hours to do. But I hope you enjoyed watching it. I hope you enjoyed the process. If you have any questions, comments, again, please leave them down there. I'll get back to you with it, my answers. And please, again, like, share, show the world if you love it. Help us out. We appreciate you so much, and I can't wait to see you again. We will do more pet portraits in the future, but we also have a whole lot of other things besides just pets. So keep an eye out for that. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.